Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor. Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor. This week on Fixing South Sudan, a discussion about the benefits of technical education for the Republic of South Sudan. Is this a revolutionary idea? And with us in the show is engineer Mawan Muortat, and he's going to flesh out his idea for us. He came all the way from the UK to South Sudan to speak about this. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Mehdi.
It's a pleasure to welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much.
So before we talk about your thesis for South Sudan, why don't you introduce yourself? What do you do? What do you studied? And then we will get into your idea.
Thank you. I was born a long time ago in South Sudan here. I was born in Tony rather than Rumbek, which is my hometown. And we grew up during the trouble. And eventually I finished my education in Egypt in 1984. I studied agriculture and specialized in animal production. Then I went to the UK. There was some kind of family reunion. And my father was an exile veteran of the previous war. I continued my education. I did a master's in animal production. And then I switched to information technology and did a master's in computer science. And from there, I went to the computing industry and worked there for more than 23, 24 years in the UK.
What do you do at the moment?
I'm now dedicating myself really to issues to do with South Sudan. So I'm writing, I talk to the media, and I'm an independent consultant.
Okay, coming to your idea of technical education, and you have already, you're a beneficiary of technical education. So what do you mean, and what difference can it make?
I'm really talking in terms of technical education relating to our productive economy, rather than inventing things or going directly into manufacturing. So if I may give you a small background, I would say if we roll back a little bit to the time, the pre-colonial period, the Egyptian-Turkish invasion in 1821, look at our communities at that time. What were we like? There were small traditional communities, most of them independent of each other, but the most important characteristic is that they were self-sustaining and their economies were sustainable. When the colonial system came, it disrupted this. So my view is the economy we have now, the social economic situation we are in now, is a disrupted and it's an unstable status. So if we look at that pre-colonial period, what our people needed then were just a few things. The most important thing is trade routes, so they would be able to trade with outsiders, that we would have been able to create enough wealth to buy stuff they do not need and to build their social infrastructure and create kind of medical care maybe amongst them. There were people already who knew how to treat people. If the economy was stronger, you'd pay them. That would have been the beginning of medical service. The same thing for engineers and craftsmen and so on. So we would have been able, if that had happened without colonialism, would have been able to create an economy that is, one, sustainable, second, equitable. It's not divided between educated elite and people who are dismissed as uneducated, who are the majority. So my idea here is we have to look at that and see how we can reconstruct the situation so we can have an inclusive society. At the moment, we are excluding the majority because we function in English, in Arabic, in Parliament, and in church.
We'll get into that. It is very interesting
and
concept.
And we exclude our people. So that's
it's very interesting concept. So are you talking about getting back to the roots and then modernizing what was there?
Yeah, I'm thinking about creating bridges, creating a bridge to try and rebuild that has been broken. So what is happening now, the elite in the cities, and also people who have come to the cities to work with their hands and so on, are excluded from people in the rural areas. If this continues and there's a divide, for example, in language, then what will happen is the people in the city will no longer know the traditional things that might have been able to sustain us into the future. And at the same time, the people in the villages can no longer be pulled into modernity. There is no language of communication. It is as if there is a colonial system in Juba, Wow, Malakal, and big cities.
Let's do the bridge. How do we make what is the interconnection between the old and the new?
Yes, the first problem is we have to realize that when the colonial system came and took kids to be educated in cities, actually what we have disempowered those people. So even though we pretend to be educated, we pretend to be advanced, we are actually less in many ways than people in the villages, because they can sustain themselves. They still have the same old system where they produce their own food, whether it's related to cattle or not, or just cultivation. Whereas people in the cities, we go to offices and we are paid by the government, or we are paid through other like aid agencies. So these things are not sustainable. Where does the government make money at the moment? Not from things that South Sudanese are selling in the open market. No, it's oil. So oil is a diminishing resource. And also aid is not sustainable. So we are looking into a future that is dark. The more we are educating our people, the more we are diminishing our production. So we need to create this bridge.
And so it's really about saving South Sudan, or in this case, fixing South Sudan, and make it not to be at odds with the past and also with the present.
Exactly. What I'm saying is the way things are going now, sometimes, for example, the World Bank might come and say, oh, we have record school entries in South Sudan. Oh, let's celebrate. But you are not thinking what these 6 kids will do when they come out.
Those ones are
Most
artificial.
of us come and look for jobs, office jobs. They are not productive. So in a way, he's less productive than if he had stayed at home. So we need to, this is where technical education comes in. We need to be able to produce technicians who can come out of school and be independent and produce something that South Sudan can sell in the international market and bring money.
When you talk about technical education, like what are you thinking about and which areas?
Yes, related basically to our productive agriculture. We have the huge land. The South Sudanese population occupies a very small part of South Sudan. The rest is really rich land that can be cultivated. So we have a huge potential. And the people there, the custodians of the land, are our traditional people back home. So we have to create a system where we don't pull them into the cities, but to modernize their systems that they have now, create trade routes that could have been created in the past. Their economies will grow. And as they grow, the technical people we are training can enter this and we grow what you call agri-economy. So people could be packaging food, people could be building the rural areas. People could go there and cultivate alongside our traditional people, bringing modern techniques, and all these people will be then contributing to the economy, paying taxes, and also creating something. So when oil runs out, we have an economy that is actually functional.
Let's talk about your master design, how to make that system, because you're proposing a theory, but how does it work in practice? What needs to happen? Do we need to change the curriculum? How do we ensure that the kind of education we want is about our organic issues? It's not about globalization. Globalization has displaced the local context and what have you. So how do we become comfortable in our own skins?
The first thing, we have to remove this idea of educated class and non-educated. Actually, in a way, our traditional people are better than us. So this artificial hierarchy that we have created to dismiss and exclude our people from the debate. We talk in parliament, we pray in church, and our people do not understand. So first of all, we have to include these people, and the way to do it is our native languages. So we have to create broad, like what we are discussing now, should reach our people, every single South Sudanese, whether they speak English or whether they speak Arabic, and they must understand it. And we must create ways where they also can have feedback, so we hear them. So the first thing is we need the media to create not just small local radios that I heard locally, but actually we have national radios here in our main national languages that could be heard all over South Sudan. And in a stroke, we can include our people. Now you will have a two-way system where we can hear them and we can know their techniques and their ideas, and also they can hear us in the cities. So in this integration of modernity and tradition, we can create the kind of economy that we want and the political system that we want.
In this program, we speak of fixing South Sudan. Can it be done?
Yes. So if you create this media inclusion, that would be the first thing that we have to do. And I'm very pleased now that South Sudan is doing one of the most important things, the first step towards modernity, which is just creating these routes. So the road structure, the road infrastructure that is being built now using the oil revenue is the first step, because what will start to happen, our people now in the rural areas that are rich in these roads will be able to sell their produces that will reach the market. So the first thing we need to do is for those people, their products to reach the markets. If they reach the markets, the money goes back to them, then development will start to go up in the rural areas. So this infrastructure is related. When we have the media and the languages, that's part of this infrastructure, because there is an understanding that is happening. The second thing that you have to do once you have broadcasting in native languages is to go through a massive campaign of literacy. And when I talk about literacy, I'm not talking about people reading in Arabic or English. I'm talking about people reading the languages they already know very well and they are masters of. And through these languages, we will be able to push, once our people are literate, we'll be able to push our programs, civic education, health care, ideas about how they bring up their children better, how they could look, things to do with vaccination, for example, how they can improve their cultivation systems, okay, how they can vote, that kind of thing. Political parties, we can debate this, how we can integrate and live together as a diverse society, how we could respect each other. Once there is a language of communication that is there and people are literate, these things will reach.
And what is going to be the language of communication?
No,
You have diverse languages.
We already have a language in South Sudan. If I go to the market now and I meet someone who doesn't come from my community, I speak to them in Arabic. This is our national language. This is our communication language that unites us. So at the top, we must have broadcasting in Arabic, probably our local version of Arabic that everybody understands. So this is a language that everybody will hear. But it's very important to have all the major native languages, because so many of our people don't even know the Arabic. So they understand that, but then we want to talk about bridging our differences. We have the Arabic as a language that unites us, and then English is the language of the elite. English is a very high language of technical needs. If you have to do research, if you have to write papers so that peers around the world understand us, this English is needed. But English is not the primary language of communication among South Sudanese.
Let's take a break. Welcome back to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor, and with us is engineer Mawan Gordon Muortat, and we are speaking about the benefits of technical education for South Sudan. There is a complete disconnect between the urban and the rural. How do we bridge it? And then talking about South Sudan in the era of globalization, people are scattered everywhere, and even the current environment is not conducive. Your idea is a good idea whose time has not come. Is that correct?
That's right. We're not thinking about that, because at the moment we are fighting fire. So we have crisis after crisis after crisis, and that takes our resources, our thinking, our energies. But there'll come a time, that's why this peace process that is going on now is vital, because once South Sudan is peaceful and is quiet, our people will be able to turn their attention to issues for the future, how this country can move from where it is now to a better future.
So it seems like you are saying that we cannot have sovereignty unless we discover ourselves, unless we don't run away from ourselves. We embrace what is South Sudanese, empower it so that we can be recognized and we have a character.
Absolutely. If we perfect English and we perfect Arabic and we forget our native languages and we dress like Europeans or like Middle Eastern people, then we become a cheap version of somebody else. And you have a very small chance of contributing to the development of mankind. But if we develop our own version of development, in the future South Sudan will be able to take its place in terms of, first of all, uplifting its people out of poverty. But secondly, and very importantly as well, how we can contribute to the whole process of human development.
In the UK, you have been coming out in the media and you are one of the biggest defenders of South Sudan. And others will say, South Sudan, where it is, there's nothing salvageable, that we have to start anew. Is that a concept you agree with? Transformation.
I was always brought up to value our people. We don't value, I never thought, when I was at home, my father was an official, but my uncles would come from the village, probably having very little clothes. But if we laughed at them, we'd be punished. We were taught to respect them. So you always grew up respecting and looking into the value of our people, even though there is no material, clear material development. We have always grown up to believe that our people have high values and they are important people and they are valuable, important in the globe, regardless of whether they have weapons or billions of pounds or billions of dollars in trade balance or anything like that. So when people say South Sudan is rubbish can be written off, those people are ignorant, and we are trying to tell them that this country has a lot of potential.
And they will say, where do we start?
We start, first of all, by fixing this issue of war. And this issue of war also is part of what I talked about earlier in terms of the way we started development. We started it through colonialism and invasion. And this has disrupted our system. Our system is out of balance. And this is one of the things that is causing the wars. If I might just say, we are talking about these elite people who are non-productive. So you take a child from the Zanda village who they were cultivating, they were looking after their parents' farm, and they were feeding everybody. As a potential, a child at 8, you take this child, bring him to the city. Yes, he goes to university, he studies law. But law doesn't actually feed anyone. So where does this money come that is paying him? Is oil money, is aid money. It's not sustainable. Whereas the Zande, as a people, have a sustainable economy. So what has happened in the cities is that we have a huge number of people coming out of schools and universities, but they have no jobs other than these service jobs for the government or aid agencies. And because of competition for these jobs, it has become an idea that these jobs are just an opportunity to sustain you, and that's part of the problem that's contributing towards war and conflict and instability.
Currently, we eat what we don't produce, we consume what we don't produce. And that is what you are saying. We have to be able to move away from that.
We have to reverse it. Exactly. So now when development starts to happen in the rural areas, like I said, the first step is these roads that are being built. Secondly, native languages to be heard. So when our president speaks, for example, or our parliament is debating, every South Sudanese listens. Nobody is excluded. That's number one. Number two is take development to them. Secondly, produce young people who are connected to that environment, to that economy. So you come out of university or technical school and be able to perform just like your cousin back home or better in terms of producing wealth. So this is why technical education is important, and leave a very small minority of people to do academic work.
I like to emphasize the point you are making is that these days there is this so much value placed on any education, and the minute someone has a degree, they think that they can contribute. And you are saying that is so artificial. And of course, this empty pride that presents itself, that if you have a PhD, you have masters, then you are qualified for a certain position. So it seems like your idea goes right against that mentality.
The judgment should be, what are you contributing to the economy? What are you producing? What are you selling in the international market to bring us dollars that can bring us medication, that can bring us other things that we don't have?
And what do you think about the current peace process, and how, because we need a policy framework to address what you are talking about. And this is why I talked about the importance of curriculum.
Yes.
Right from the very beginning, they say catch them while they are young.
Yes.
And coming to what you are proposing, can we start from the basics and then gradually move into tertiary education?
Exactly. So I spoke earlier about the native languages, how it's important to adopt literacy to bring reading and writing to all our populations in their native languages. In fact, that's also what we must do in the schools. So every child must know their native tongue, so that bridge, that connection between them in the urban areas and the rural areas continues. As he learns new things about the world, how to build aircraft, yeah, or how to have a better agricultural system, he can write, and his native people can understand it. They can also say, actually, that is not sustainable. We used to cultivate in that way, and that doesn't conflict with our environment. Maybe it's better for us to keep our system. So you have that discussion. So that's very important. So you can have this kind of education that emphasizes, one, the native languages are not lost among our urban kids that are wherever they are born in South Sudan. And what's important there is for them also to not lose the knowledge that our people have. We think that education is all in the cities. When I went to my village 3 years ago, I met my cousins, and they were able to name every plant, every bird, every insect, and I did not know them. So I asked myself, who is educated? So this is what we need to transform then into information to our urban people.
There are two aspects of what you are talking about, the policy side and the practical side, which means you need some kind of a stimulus. You need money, some kind of a Marshall Plan to do the things you're doing. And this is probably where your idea doesn't kick off the ground, because South Sudan as it exists does not support what you are talking about.
Well, what has happened to us is like we are a good farmer, and you toil every day to produce your food and then feed your family, and you have nothing to sell. Suddenly you discovered gold in your field. You abandon your agriculture and you are selling gold, but you forget that the gold is going to run out. That's what is happening to us. So if I were in charge, the first thing I will do is to include everybody in this economy. And the way to do it, because at the moment the educated class or the governing class treats oil as it belongs to the government. No, the oil and all our natural resources belong to South Sudanese. So if it was me, I would register every South Sudanese, get the oil revenue, divide it by the number of our population, and pay everybody the same amount. Then I'll take a small percentage, 20% as taxation, and that will be used to run the government. They will invest that money the way they like.
Even if you don't pay every single citizen, you can sponsor the public good.
Yes. Well, my idea is if you pay every citizen, the way they will spend the money will stimulate the economy. If you can't do that, we'll do what John Garang was talking about, is that you don't sell the oil and pay people salaries. You get the oil, you invest it in agriculture, which is what I was talking about. You go to the rural areas, you fund, you improve their systems, put the money there, bring tractors, bring fertilizers, understand their production systems, find markets, and sell. Then you tax that industry, and this is where you pay people salaries. That's what Garang wanted, and that's what we should be doing.
Wealth sharing.
Exactly.
Equitable wealth sharing across the nation.
That's right.
Based on population.
That's right.
And that is going to fix South Sudan.
That's going to fix South Sudan.
Thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you very much, Meding.